Hello, my name is Douglas Comer, and I'm president of the United States National Committee of the International Council on Monuments Sites, or as we're known also, ICOMOS USA. And I'm also president of our supporting organization, which is World Heritage USA. I'm extraordinarily pleased to welcome you to this webinar on the inscription of the Moravian site in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to the World Heritage List. The Moravian site in Bethlehem joins 3 other Moravian sites already inscribed on the list. They are in Denmark, Ireland, and Germany. I had the honor and great pleasure of attending inscription ceremonies at Bethlehem last week. The spirit of international cooperation and support, which is so evident in the Moravian inscriptions, is one that resonates deeply with our objectives, with the objectives of the International Council on Monuments and Sites. I'm extremely pleased that Moravian University, which is the 3rd oldest university in the United States, and is in itself an expression of the Moravian interest in both education and the improvement of the human condition. I'm very pleased that university will soon embark upon graduate programs in World Heritage. And we look forward to collaboration with those programs. Now, we will be holding our ICOMOS USA, World Heritage USA annual conference and symposium, followed by our celebration of World Heritage in November of this year, 2024, on the 21st and 22nd of November. At those events, we look forward to celebrating again the inscription of the Moravian site in Pennsylvania. And I'd like to invite all of you to attend both the conference, which will be, I think, really an amazing conference. We'll be talking about the impact of climate change on heritage. And that conference will be our conference and symposium for the year. And we'll also have our celebration of World Heritage on the 22nd on the evening. Now, if you go to one of our websites at ICOMOS USA or World Heritage USA, you'll find a link to register. So please do that. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to our moderator and our Vice President, Destry Jarvis. Thank you so much for watching, and please, I'd like to see you at our conference symposium and celebration. We'll hear more about Bethlehem and some other very interesting topics. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Destry Jarvis, Vice President of ICOMOS USA. Welcome to our webinar. This is a series we've been running for the last 5 or 6 years to cover all the U.S. World Heritage Sites and other national and international events that affect World Heritage Sites. So we're pleased that you've joined us today, and we'll get right to it. As most of you know, there was a recent convening worldwide of the World Heritage Program in Delhi. One of the attendees was our National Park Service Office of International Affairs acting director, John Putnam, who's joined us today to talk about that and other aspects of managing the U.S. World Heritage Program. John has a 32, 3, 4-year career in the National Park Service, the last 20 of which he's spent in the Office of International Affairs. He's worked in over 30 countries. And early in his career, he was a Peace Corps volunteer in Southern Africa. So John is an expert in this field. He's run this program exceedingly well for his time in the Office of International Affairs, and we're most pleased to have him join us today. John, take it away.
Thank you so much, Destry, and hello, everybody. And so I don't want to take too much time away from the celebration of our Moravian Church Settlements and our colleagues in Bethlehem, but I did want to take some brief moments here to highlight some of the news affecting the U.S. World Heritage Program. There's been a lot of developments in the last few months and a lot of exciting things underway, which I will share with you over the next few minutes. So there have been a lot of big changes to the U.S. World Heritage team. you see here in the slide, that's yours truly on the left, our colleague Yvette Wong from the State Department, who we consider part of our team, and then of course Steve Morris and Phyllis Ellen. Just since June, both Steve and Phyllis have retired, and of course we're very happy for them personally, but they took with them more than 40 years of institutional knowledge and memory about World Heritage in particular, but a lot of other things. And so that World Heritage team, at least on the Park Service interior side, has gone from 3 down to 1 to me. And so we, or I, have been stretched pretty thin, but we've got some good news. We've got the opportunity to hire some new staff in the coming months, and we actually have an excellent detailee working in our office, a woman named Anne Marie McKinney, who normally works for the Park Service at Prince William Forest, but has a master's degree in World Heritage Management. She's going to be helping with us, our team, for the next few months and perhaps longer. So help is on the way. Of course, today's focus is on the Moravian Church Settlements, and I'm going to let Hank and others highlight their work. But I did want to take this opportunity to thank them not only for the nomination itself, which really was an exemplary nomination. The ECOMOS evaluation of this was really excellent. It made my life in Delhi that much easier, not to have to deal with any key issues or challenges, and it just sailed right through the evaluation and the inscription, and was inscribed, with great fanfare. And I need again to thank Hank and Stephanie and Charlene and others for organizing such a great event last week in Bethlehem, where they hosted senior representatives from the State Department, from the National Park Service, from UNESCO, from the World Heritage Center, and of course their partners from the other 3 countries involved. And again, I can't emphasize enough how this is the United States' first ever transnational nomination, and now transnational World Heritage Site. We do, of course, have 2 transboundary sites with Canada, and those we value very highly. But this is a different species, if you will, and so they are all kind of laying the groundwork for us and helping us figure out how to move forward. But I have no concerns at all with the team involved that this will be a great success. But we can't rest on our laurels. We're continuing to move forward with other World Heritage matters. The most immediate one right now is finalizing the nomination for Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge in Georgia. Okefenokee has been on our tentative list since 1982, so more than 40 years. So one of the few sites that were on that original tentative list that sort of made through 2 revisions of the tentative list in 2007-8 and again in 2017. And so we're finally getting ready to nominate this amazing refuge. If successful, it will be our first true traditional national wildlife refuge nominated and hopefully inscribed. And so very excited about this proposal. We're hoping the federal interagency panel on World Heritage will review the nomination in December and give our assistant secretary the thumbs up to submit it to UNESCO. Then at the same time, we're also working on a draft nomination for, at this point, 11 different properties, which compose the draft nomination for the U.S. Civil Rights Movement sites. There, again, as of now, we may add a few more to this, but there are 11 sites, 9 of which are managed by the Park Service. And the department authorized the preparation of a draft nomination. This is being led by a team at Georgia State University. With any luck, we may be able to follow Okefenokee in a year or so with a nomination for these properties. Just briefly touch on the larger relationship between the United States and UNESCO. I'm sure everyone on this call is very well aware that we rejoined UNESCO as a full member back in July of 2023. Since then, we've certainly resumed paying our UNESCO dues. We're still waiting on the United States to make its contributions to the World Heritage Fund, which is a separate account. And I know this is being worked upon as we speak. And certainly we would strongly support that resumption of those contributions because certainly it makes all of our lives that much better for our new nominations, but also for the U.S.'s role in helping to conserve and help manage existing World Heritage sites around the globe. This is an important demonstration of the U.S.'s support of World Heritage. Just briefly, again, some of the things that we're moving forward with, as I mentioned, a major interest of ours is not just nominations from the U.S. or from other countries, but how do we prioritize the protection, conservation, and management of existing sites? And we've tried to be a good model to the rest of the world by things like our World Heritage Fellowship Program, which as of now does not have any funding, but we're looking to resume that. And this was a way where we brought in site managers from World Heritage sites in the developing world to come to some of our World Heritage sites for several weeks, up to several months in a few cases, and exchange ideas and experiences with our managers and be able to bring those back home to their home countries, their home World Heritage sites, and improve the management and protection there. We also have some ideas for a potential workshop in the next year or so on climate change and World Heritage. I know this is something of interest to US ICUMOS and World Heritage USA, so we'd like to continue that discussion. And then also a major area of priority for us is working with Indigenous communities in and around World Heritage sites. In the periodic reporting exercise, which we finalized about 1.5 years or so ago, many of our natural sites expressed an interest in finding ways to recognize, acknowledge the Indigenous connections of their sites. And while we're probably not going to be renominated at any of these sites just because of the complications therein, we are exploring other opportunities to more officially acknowledge those connections. And we're also sharing some ideas with other state parties to the World Heritage Convention on the same topic, because this is not just a US interest, this is one in many other countries around the globe. And finally, before I pass it back over to my friends and colleagues in Bethlehem, I just wanted to point out, and this was someone else reminded me of this just a couple of weeks ago, that next year will mark the 60th anniversary of the White House Conference on International Cooperation. And this is where the very first mention of a World Heritage Trust was officially shared by, at the time, Congressman Joe Fisher and Russell Train, who many folks consider to be sort of the father of World Heritage. And so this may present an opportunity for us all to, again, highlight that the important American United States contribution to the whole idea of the World Heritage Convention. It started here in Washington almost exactly 60 years ago. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and pass this back to Destry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. That's terrific. I have one quick question for you. You mentioned the Fellows Program. Was that funded through appropriations or through a philanthropic donation?
The majority of that funding was from the United Nations Foundation through the National Park Foundation, but it was UNF, United Nations Foundation money that we received about a decade or so ago. And we were able to use it, string it out for quite a while, but now we're looking for other options.
And is the direct funding possible from the National Park Foundation? I mean, if they made it, they raised their own money, obviously.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we certainly are able to accept funding from the Park Foundation, and we actually have a small account for another international project through the foundation. Yep. Great. You mentioned the civil rights nomination, and you know that we're working vigorously on that as well. Let me ask you one thing about that. There are a couple of, one of the U.S. law requirements is that a site be a National Historic Landmark before we can include an historic site in a nomination. And there are two sites that are sitting out there waiting on their NHL
nominations. Do you have any update on the status of those, the Woolworth Lunch Counter and the Lorraine Motel?
I don't have any news on that at present, Destry. In fact, that reminds me that I need to actually check in with our colleagues at Georgia State to see if they have any news. But I have not heard anything, so I'm assuming there's no new developments in the last few weeks.
The one thing I heard, believed to be true, is that at the December meeting of the National Park System Advisory Board, which reviews all NHL nominations before they go to the secretary, they will consider the Woolworth Lunch Counter nomination. With the paperwork has been prepared, it's been reviewed by the NHL committee of the board, and the full board is going to consider it at their December meeting.
That'd be great. Now, certainly, as you point out, a site has to be designated of national significance, including the National Historical Landmark, before it can be nominated. So that would be very timely.
Yeah, great. Not seeing any other questions. We'll thank you very much for your presentation. This was really great update across the board on things that you're doing. I'll let you go with an assurance that we're going to continue to support your budget through our work with the appropriations committees on the Hill, and hope you can get some new hires going there to try to help you fill the shoes of Phyllis Ellen and Steve Morris.
We're working on it. Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it very much. So now we shift gears to the main topic of today, which is to further acknowledge and honor the most recent inscription, the 26th U.S. World Heritage Site in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, of the Moravian Church Settlement. We have 3 speakers lined up, all from Bethlehem, all deeply involved in this nomination, the preparation of the dossier, and all the mechanics of working it through the system. I think we'll start off with Hank Barnette. Hank is a retired CEO of Bethlehem Steel Corporation, which was obviously headquartered in Bethlehem. But more importantly for our purposes, he is the chair of the transnational working group that is among the four countries that were part of this transnational nomination. He's also vice chair of Bethlehem's World Heritage Council and Commission. And I will say that I haven't been involved with ICOMOS except for the last 6 years directly on the board, though I've been involved with World Heritage over my 50-year career. And of all of those nominations that have come along, I think I can say that Bethlehem was the best organized, most thorough in its procedures and analysis, and it's extraordinary. And the commitment that appears to be in place to continue this on is outstanding, and we wish that the other 25 World Heritage sites were as well organized as you've been. So Hank, you start us off, please.
Thank you, Destry, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank ICOMOS USA for having us as part of this discussion. The one way to proceed, Destry, is to introduce possibly the complexity of a transnational nomination by introducing and recognizing so many of the different groups that have been part of this, starting with ICOMOS USA, you, Doug Comer, Tom Cassidy, many others. And Charlene, Stephanie, and I are all proud members of ICOMOS USA. But the starting point of the Moravian Church Settlements inscription is the Moravian Church itself, which for 300 years or more has preserved and protected and conserved these properties worldwide. And the property owners not associated with the church, the lessees, not necessarily associated with the church, have done the same thing. And that's the remarkable story, and Charlene will be going into more detail about the criteria for inscription and why Moravian Church Settlements are very worthy of meeting the criteria and that inscription. The international parties to this and our international partners, Christiansfeld, Denmark, Gracehill, United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, Herrnhut, Germany, and their representatives have been carefully working on this nomination and inscription for many years. UNESCO, and particularly the director of the World Heritage Center, Lazar Asimo, we do wish to recognize. And at the Park Service level, while they've been mentioned before, we wish to recognize them again because John Putnam has displayed exceptional professionalism and leadership, as did his predecessor, Stephen Morris, and the historian, Phyllis Ellen. Also with the National Park Service, Philadelphia in our region, Catherine Turton. There are many others, but that group was so directly advised and part of this process. Here in Bethlehem, to focus on Bethlehem a minute, our mayor, Robert Donchez, and his successor, our current mayor, William Reynolds, had the Bethlehem World Heritage Council and Commission, the council, the three property owners, Moravian University, the city of Bethlehem, along with Bethlehem area Moravians, owners of much of the property here in Bethlehem and in the 10-acre site. Two lessees, Historic Bethlehem Museums and Sites, President Marianne Hokich, as well as Central Moravian Church and Senior Pastor Janelle Rice, all very, very involved in this process and exceptionally helpful. We are resident in Northampton County, and the county executive and the county council, Lamont McClure and the county council, have helped make this possible. So I simply wish to make that kind of detour by way of reporting to you on some PowerPoint slides, presentations that we have developed over recent years in an effort to answer questions that kept arising. These PowerPoints are in draft form and we keep modifying them and updating them, but they are available if they would be of any interest. So what we're going to try to do is go quickly through those PowerPoints with you. If there are questions either during the presentation or afterwards, we would be very pleased to take them. If it's after the inscription, please coordinate with Stephanie Augello, our World Heritage Coordinator. In some cases, though, it's been necessary, depending on the audience, to do what we call a World Heritage 101. These terms are familiar to all of you, not necessarily those that are less familiar with World Heritage, but terms like state parties and the convention and so forth. The World Heritage list, again, for this audience, not necessary to have lengthy discussion, but the list, how it comes about, we always try to introduce and cover. As to World Heritage today, we have, with our transcription, become the 26th World Heritage Site in the United States, and exceptionally proud to have that designation. Now, perhaps by now, you and perhaps many others are asking the question, well, who are the Moravians? And the Moravian Church, starting back in the 1400s, but in particular moving to the 1700s, through missionary and through colonial efforts, expanded the church worldwide, and particularly in the four communities that we're talking about, but others as well. The journey to World Heritage, or Bethlehem, and the other sites is a long one. But the center of the recent efforts began in the early 2000s. Representatives from ICOMOS, from UNESCO, Christiansfeld, Denmark, and so forth visited Bethlehem, and Charlene was a part of that initial effort and has been a leader of the effort since that time, and has done just an exceptional job. Christiansfeld, in some respects, took a lead here, and in 2015 was selected and inscribed on the World Heritage List. Just prior to that, Bethlehem had been named National Historic Landmark District, and thus its potential eligibility for World Heritage tentative listing, which happened in 2016. Promptly, then Mayor Donchez, and followed by Mayor Reynolds, established our World Heritage Council and Commission. They became operative. The Transnational Working Group had been informally discussing many years prior to 2018, but became a formal group. Since that time, I've had the privilege of chairing that group of the four sides. And together, we prepared the transnational serial nomination to the World Heritage List, the 350-page document, along with the maps and all other related necessary documentation composing the dossier, which was submitted in 2023. The ICOMOS evaluation and assessment took place. We had a very highly qualified assessor visit Bethlehem and the other sites and performed an exacting analysis of the sites, made his recommendations, and went on from there. As we've said before, Moravian Church Settlements inscribed in this year. If you want one simple explanation of a transnational nomination, this chart, in my respectful view, displays it, because it demonstrates what I sometimes refer to as the 12 moving parts of this transnational nomination. UNESCO, of course, the World Heritage Convention, the treaty, if you will, the World Heritage Center. There are 4 state parties, 4 governments, if you will. The church ever present in the discussions, and of course the 4 sites and the leadership at the 4 sites, but also the coordinated transnational leadership of the sites as a group. The work is reflected in these 3 documents: the nomination document itself, the core document, and next to that is our transnational international working plan. And of course, each site then has its own local management plan. And it's the implementation of the international management plan and the implementation of the local management plans that present an ongoing effort by the transnational group as well as our local leadership. But to show quickly our World Heritage Council, who the individuals are, but importantly, who they represent. And similarly, our commission, we have a broad community group membership in our commission, composed of members of council, but also leaders in the nonprofit, educational, and other communities. If you put that one up, great. That would preliminarily then be an introduction to this transnational nomination. Charlene will cover the criteria for inscription and share with you the sites in very specific detail. Stephanie will review benefits that we believe are evidenced by being a World Heritage Site and the recognition event. I close only by saying again, for many that would not have been possible without, this would not have been possible without, in my judgment, without the excellent advice of our consultant, Mr. Barry Campbell of the United Kingdom, and who served as coordinator of our transnational working group, and the assistant coordinator, starting as World Heritage on behalf of Saxony, Germany, but now is the focal point for World Heritage for Germany, resident Berlin, Frederica Hansel. So Barry and Frederica, again, we recognize and thank you.
Thank you very much, Hank. That was a terrific introduction and super comprehensive of the process you've been through. Now we'll hear from Charlene Mowers, who's been a historian in Bethlehem for 30 years. She knows her stuff. She's been active with ICOMOS in past years as well, US ICOMOS. And she serves as a senior advisor and historian for the Bethlehem World Heritage Council and Commission. I think she will give us a bit more of the historical perspective that Moravian settlement brings to the World Heritage List. So Charlene, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be with you all today. As you all know, a site must qualify under several criteria. There are actually 10 criteria, and our Moravian Church Settlements was able to qualify under criterion 3 and criterion 4. And as you can see on the screen, criterion 3 is talking about a cultural tradition or a civilization, living or disappeared. Well, Moravian Church Settlements are definitely living, and they exemplify the Moravian principles and ideals and practices illustrated in the plan of the town, the building types, the choir houses, and incredible craftsmanship. And also way ahead of their time in the movement toward democratization with the small d, the same standard of living for all, with shared gardens, open space, schools, agriculture, industry, and all this was done for the common good of everyone. And criterion 4 is specific to the building, the architecture, technological ensembles. The Moravian Church Settlements are examples of intentional religious town planning, and their urban structure is so obvious even today when you see the plan of the sites. They have the outstanding examples of these buildings, distinctive architecture, which I know the name of the architecture is kind of a mouthful, Moravian Church Civic Baroque, and the craftsmanship that can be seen in all of the settlements. The Moravians have transferred their historic traditions and values, not only to what life was like in the 1700s, but also to life today, always adapting their planning ideals and their architecture to the local customs and local materials that were available, and have been working on preserving both the tangible and intangible aspects of their sites for centuries. Authenticity and integrity are also key parts of a World Heritage Site. And looking up in Webster's dictionary, I used a real dictionary, paper dictionary, authenticity is being truly what something is said to be. Well, that is perfectly and a perfect example of what Moravian Church Settlements are. Many of the buildings that were constructed in the 1700s are still standing, and many are still being used for their original purposes. And when you look at the layout of the towns, you can still read the layout from that time. And the word integrity, what does that mean? That means unimpaired, sound, a firm adherence to a code of values. Well, the Moravian Church Settlements represents continuing religious heritage that has been taken advantage of across generations, centuries, and around the world, but also using local materials and taking advantage of the geography of the site. Outstanding universal value, or OUV, is also a key part of becoming a World Heritage Site. Well, we are actually 4 towns in 4 countries, all founded in the 18th century, exemplifying spiritual, societal, and ethical ideals of the Moravian Church. And it also are examples of the cultural and geographical reach of this international network of settlements. The Moravians founded approximately 27 Moravian Church settlements in the time period of the 1730s till the early 1800s. Herrnhut was the mother settlement from which they sent out missionaries. Christiansfeld is believed to be the best preserved Moravian settlement in Europe, if not the world. Bethlehem was the first and best preserved colony settlement here in North America, and Gracehill, the best preserved in the British Isles, planned around a central square with well-defined gender access. So what is our site here in Bethlehem? It constitutes 10 acres in the heart of Bethlehem. And Bethlehem is a community of approximately 75,000 people. So this is a very small part of our city, but it's actually in the heart of downtown Bethlehem. It includes 9 buildings: Gemein House, Old Chapel, Single Sisters House, Bell House, Widow's House, Single Brethren's House, Central Moravian Church along a main axis, Church Street. And the Moravians were very involved in supporting their missionary efforts through industry. And so we still have the waterworks and tannery today, along with the archaeological remains of some other buildings, and God's Acre Cemetery. The Moravians are very much a part of our community, and we would like to thank once again our partners in this endeavor: the Bethlehem Moravians, Central Moravian Church, the City of Bethlehem, Historic Bethlehem Museums and Sites, Moravian University, and the support of Northampton County. I'm going to show you quickly some slides of Bethlehem, which illustrate the authenticity and integrity over centuries. To the left and to the right, you see views of Bethlehem. And when you see some of the other slides, you can actually see in these pictures that the main layout of the town along an east-west axis of Church Street and a north-south axis of Main Street are still very obvious today. And here you can see the locational map of where we are and the coordinates in the world, if anyone wants to find us worldwide. The dark outlined lines are the actual 10-acre site. You will see 2 other smaller buildings outlined, and they are part of our National Historic Landmark District, but not part of the World Heritage Site. This is Church Street, and this is the oldest building in Bethlehem, the 1741 Gemein House. You can see the view in the 1860s and a view today. As you can tell, it is virtually unchanged from that era. The Gemein House is the only 18th century Gemein House in existence in the world today. 3 places of worship are still here, and they're still used in the Gemein House, the Old Chapel, and Central Moravian Church. Here you can see views once again from the 1800s and 2024. To the left is the Old Chapel, in the middle is the Bell House, and to the right is just a corner of the Single Sisters House. The Single Sisters House, once again, people are still living in the new wing. Women are still living in the new wing, 1772 of the Sisters House. And there are apartments in the Bell House. So these buildings are still residents, and the 1744 and 52 wings have been converted to a part of Historic Bethlehem Museums and Sites so that people can actually see what it was like. Central Moravian Church to the left in 1920. I have asked people if they can recognize that car from 1920. Unfortunately, we don't have a big enough picture of the car. But anyway, the church is unchanged over this time period. And then the Single Brethren's House, if you can see, there are other buildings attached to it over time, part of Moravian University. But this is the view from the belfry on top of Central Moravian Church. I thought it was important for you to see that even though other buildings were attached, it is still there, complete as it was in 1748. And then the colonial industrial quarter, our colonial industrial quarter is believed to be America's earliest industrial park, where there were 35 crafts, trades, and industries operating within a few years of the founding of Bethlehem in 1741. But unfortunately, by the 1950s, it became a junkyard. Through government support at all levels, the junkyard was cleaned up, and the colonial industrial quarter was leased to historic Bethlehem museums and sites in 1966 and has been restored, and we are just thrilled. The 1761 tannery is the only Moravian industrial building from the period still in existence today, and the waterworks is America's first pumped municipal water system. And God's Acre Cemetery is very unique, not only here, but in all countries. Every Moravian church settlement has a God's Acre where there are burials according to groups, not in family plots. And Europeans, Native Americans, African Americans are all buried side by side where everyone is equal in death. I'm just going to show a few slides of our partner communities so you can see how similar we all are. If you look at the slide on the right at God's Acre, you might have thought that was God's Acre in Bethlehem, but that's God's Acre in Christiansfeld. And the church is on the left. There are two wings on the church, and the sanctuary is in the center with the belfry on top of the sanctuary. That is true in all of the Moravian church settlements. Here is a view of Herrnhut in Germany, the mother settlement from which missionaries were sent. And if you look at the picture on the right, you'll see that is the church, but there you can see the belfry in the center. And if you notice the roof line, it's very evocative of the roof line of the Second Single Brethren's house in Bethlehem. And then here is Gracehill in Northern Ireland, which is situated along the River Main. Once again, their church, and to the right and left are the two extensions. And you'll notice the belfry on top of the sanctuary portion. So we're very pleased that we were inscribed on the World Heritage List as the very first transnational inscription for the United States, and working with our partner communities, our colleagues, our friends in Gracehill and Christiansfeld and in Herrnhut.
Thank you very much, Charlene. This was really thorough and good, and I think we'll have some questions at the end. I'll wait till after Stephanie has done her presentation and we'll take questions. So our next speaker, Stephanie Augello, is the Chief of Staff to the Mayor of Bethlehem, but she's also been the World Heritage Coordinator for, I'll let her tell us how many years. But interestingly to me, she was a multi-decade teacher before her current career path, and taught history and geography in particular. And I think, she is a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh and also Lehigh University, and a master's from Wilkes University. So we're pleased to have you here, Stephanie. I know you've been the workhorse in all this, if I can use that expression. And we're glad it's been so successful. Please, Stephanie, if you would take it over from here.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today, sitting alongside of you, Destry, and Jonathan, Hank, and Charlene, to talk about our nomination and inscription process. I came on under our previous mayor, Mayor Donchez, who began our Bethlehem World Heritage Commission and Council in 2018, and worked in support of him, and then under Mayor Reynolds, who took office in 2022, took on a different role as the coordinator, and have just been working with this wonderful team, including Hank, Charlene, and all of the representatives from our property owners and lessees. So I couldn't be more grateful for the team that I work with. We're coming off an extremely busy week. From October 15th through the 18th, we welcomed approximately 200 of our World Heritage partners and guests to Bethlehem for a truly momentous occasion. The city of Bethlehem was honored to have been chosen to host the inscription ceremonies for Moravian Church Settlements. And in addition, it gave us the opportunity to meet in person with our partners from Gracehill, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, Herrnhut, Germany, and Christiansfeld, Denmark. As you know, there have been decades of planning and years of Zoom meetings that brought us to this unique moment in time. And you can imagine how emotional and exciting it was to be able to embrace our partners as they arrived in town last week and to be able to give each other congratulatory hugs and just to celebrate this historic achievement. On the evening of Wednesday, October 16th, just 1 week ago, we had the opportunity to experience a beautiful celebratory worship service at Central Moravian Church, where we got to hear the voices of our transnational leaders of the Moravian Church. Those leaders included Reverend Janelle Rice from Bethlehem, Pastors Peter and Jill Vogt from Herrnhut, Bishop Sir Groves from Gracehill, and Reverend Dr. Jorgen Boiler from Christiansfeld. And we're just so grateful for each of the country's beautiful reflections and for making the occasion so joyous and meaningful. And it was a perfect prelude to our inscription events, which followed on Thursday, October 17th. We had officials, delegates, partners, friends join us from great distances for our inscription ceremony and recognition dinner on the 17th. The speakers included government officials from Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, Germany, and Denmark. We were blessed to have the Director of World Heritage, Lazar Orlando Asimo, join us, who flew in with the inscription certificate from UNESCO World Heritage offices in Paris and presented it to us that day at the ceremony. In addition, we had United States Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, Richard Verma, the UN Ambassador to UNESCO, Courtney O'Donnell, Deputy Director of the National Park Service for External and Congressional Affairs, Pedro Ramos, Congresswoman Susan Wild, and Northampton County Executive Lamont Clore join us on stage with congratulatory remarks. Also joining us in support of our inscription at the ceremony and dinner were past and present officials from the Department of Interior, National Park Service, including Jonathan Putnam, Stephen Morris, Phil and Ellis, Catherine Turton. We had representation from both our senators' offices, Senator Casey and Senator Fetterman, representatives from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's office, including Ann Ryan, our Deputy Secretary of Tourism. We had Doug Comer, President of the World Heritage USA, in attendance. We had elected representatives from both the Pennsylvania State and Houses and our Northampton County and Bethlehem City Councils, who have all been so supportive in this process. And of course, we're also joined by many community partners who have been so supportive of the nomination and inscription process the past 23 years here in Bethlehem. And of course, also our Bethlehem World Heritage Council, our Bethlehem World Heritage Commission, and members of our transnational coordination group were all in town and seated front row to celebrate our inscription and also to plan for the future of the transnational site during meetings that took place over the several days. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Barry Gamble and Frederica Hansel, who are present with us and have been the guiding force all along through our nomination and inscription. We ended the day with a beautiful celebratory dinner at historic Hotel Bethlehem and included a performance by our world-renowned Bach Choir and a keynote address by Deputy Secretary of State Richard Verma, who has ties to Bethlehem. In the spring of 2025, we will take time as a community to come together in celebration of our new World Heritage status. We understand that not everyone here in Bethlehem is Moravian, but that this is owned by all of us in Bethlehem and the greater Lehigh Valley. We will meet community-wide to plan this celebration and discuss what it looks like as we involve others into this designation. As we know, the Moravians prided themselves in fairness and acceptance. So we would like to include all of our community partners in planning a celebration that represents all of Bethlehem and the Lehigh Valley. A celebration that showcases where we came from, who we are now, and how we will continue to represent the ideals of the Moravians in the future and continue to tell their story. There are many tangible and intangible benefits that come along with the World Heritage Site. Most notably, the local, national, and international recognition and prestige that comes along with being named to the UNESCO World Heritage List. And it is an honor to be recognized alongside the other 25 sites in the United States and the over 1,000 sites worldwide. As we met with officials at our Inscription event last week, there was much discussion surrounding our site being the first transnational site for the United States and as serving as sort of a national and international role model for what a transnational site looks like. There will be much interest in our site from that standpoint, and we are already starting to see that. Additionally, as residents feel a sense of pride in our designation, there will be opportunities for community development and interaction, or community involvement and interaction. The site will also offer a multitude of educational opportunities for our schools and universities. Tangible benefits, of course, include the potential of the site as economic and cultural stimulus for the greater Lehigh Valley and Pennsylvania. Through increased tourism, we will see additional spending in hotels, restaurants, entertainment, and other cultural and tourist sites in our area. And overall increased foot traffic in our downtowns will naturally take place. All of this will, of course, bring in additional local and state tax revenue. We are fortunate to have the support of Discover Lehigh Valley and Moravian University, who have been a useful tool for marketing and branding of our site, while they continue to assist with the promotion of the site and support as we develop a plan for sustainable tourism. We expect to see additional businesses, conference, and educational travel to the area, as many area businesses, universities, and community organizations are already advertising their location being in the proximity to UNESCO World Heritage Site and the benefits that come along with that. The location of our site lends itself to somewhat of a heritage triangle and an excellent opportunity to promote itself within that triangle. It is an easily accessible stopping point, as we are just over an hour drive west of the Statue of Liberty World Heritage Site in New York, and just over an hour drive north of Independence Hall, a World Heritage Site in Philadelphia. If you look at the three locations on the map, it forms a perfect triangle. Additionally, Pennsylvania is home to a third World Heritage Site, Fallingwater, which is a part of the 20th century architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright, which is about a 4-hour drive west of Bethlehem. Domestically, there are no shortage of visitors, as 1/3 of the United States population lives within 500 miles of Bethlehem or within an 8-hour drive. We're located at the center of the East Coast massive consumer market and at the heart of everything. Additionally, we're within a 7-hour drive of the Toronto metropolitan area and St. Lawrence Seaway, home to over 50 million Canadians. So Moravian Church Settlements, Bethlehem, is currently situated in a very advantageous location. So with that, that completes our presentation. And I will turn it back over to Destry to any questions.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and Hank and Charlene. This was really wonderful, thorough, in-depth presentation, and you have done an extraordinary amount of work, and you have much to be proud of. We do have several questions from our audience. One, interestingly, the National Park Service, which manages 19 of the U.S. World Heritage Sites, has a statutory mandate to provide education to visitors. And so one of our viewers asks, what are the plans and what are the process that Bethlehem, or maybe more specifically, the Moravian Church Settlement will use or does already use to interpret its sites to the visiting public beyond members of the church?
Yes. I would be very happy to answer that question. Bethlehem, the Moravian Museum, and other entities, part of Historic Bethlehem Museums and Sites, have been giving tours of this area since the 1930s. And we have just completed preparing an actual World Heritage Tour for the Moravian Church Settlement of Bethlehem. We are also working on with the Bethlehem Area School District and other schools in the area for curriculum-based programs for children. And then Moravian University is also working on other ways to reach out. And I will turn it over to Hank to comment on the university.
Yes, this too requires transnational implementation, Destry. So we are also working
Sure.
closely with the other 3 Moravian Church settlements in the context of the international management plan in implementing just these kinds of activities. So it is a work in progress.
Okay, terrific. So another viewer asks, speaking of other Moravian settlements, what is the possibility in the future for connecting with other Moravian settlements in the U.S., such as Old Salem in North Carolina?
It's a very good question, and one that from the beginning we were required to address, because Christiansfeld, having achieved World Heritage status in 2015, who then would be the other candidates? And again, that's where the diligence that was taking place by the transnational group, and particularly with the advice of our coordinators and consultants, a worldwide examination of other possible sites was conducted. And you can be sure that ICOMOS in the evaluation asked those questions at Destry. And the judgment was, and the conclusion was, that the sites most worthy at this time are the 3 sites that added to Christiansfeld. The door, however, is still very much open. And if there are other sites, and if there are other state parties wishing to advance candidates in their respective countries, that will certainly be a possibility.
And so there's some possibility down the road as your management plan evolves to
Yes.
engage some of these other communities with, their input and their knowledge of what they've done.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So are there plans for continuing the relationship with the other transnational members on the inscription
Yes.
for coordination and sharing knowledge and that sort of thing?
Yes, if you go to the chart, Destry, what I refer to as my favorite chart, but it shows you our current organizational structure. And in Bethlehem last week on the 17th, there was a meeting of the intergovernmental group.
Right.
And that group then approved the organization and the management of the successor to the transnational working group, now a transnational coordination group. And that's represented by 4 countries, defined membership. I will continue to serve as chair of that group until year end, and will be succeeded by David Johnson of Gracehill, United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. That's our succession plan. The group will continue to meet on a periodic basis and continue to review and implement our international management plan. So we will very much be continuing.
Terrific. One person asks, is there a way to get a digital copy of the dossier? The Annex 1 in particular was their question, but are they available digitally?
Yes, we defer that to Stephanie, and if the person asking that question could coordinate with her, we could make references available.
Okay, terrific. I have a question. The relationship that you explained, Charlene and Hank have mentioned, and as well, the functions that the church settlement maintains, such as I would call them the business functions, like the tannery and the waterworks, is kind of an unusual thing for a church, a religious organization. How did that happen? How did that come about? And was it a specific characteristic of the Moravians, or was it also other early settlement churches?
I think Charlene can best answer the history of the colonial industrial quarter. Destry, I think your question applies to all of that, and I can cover the role of the different parties here in Bethlehem in the organization and management of our local site. But Charlene.
Right.
Destry, it is very interesting that the Moravians were always looking to be self-sufficient. And here in Bethlehem, they cited their community at the confluence of the Monocacy Creek and Lehigh River, which provided water power. And they were looking for ways to support their missionaries out in the field. So they were very instrumental in being very industrious, I might say, in establishing so many crafts, trades, and industries so quickly. Bethlehem was considered a closed community in the sense that only Moravians could live there. All the property was owned by the church, and all the industries were owned by the church to support its operations. And they were sending missionaries all over the East Coast from Bethlehem to reach out to unchurched Europeans and to indigenous peoples. And so that's why it was so important for them to have industries. And they cited the residential places, the choir houses where people lived on the limestone bluff overlooking the Lehigh with their gardens on the south side of the hill, and their industries along the Monocacy at the bottom of the hill. So it was a fascinating study and what they did and how it worked. And the fact that they were very interested in style and design. I don't know if they really thought about the style and design, but the ram's horn hinges, the fascinating profiles of their benches and chairs, which were not only in Bethlehem, but carried through in all these other communities where the Moravians went, their high degree of craftsmanship.
Just add to that, Destry, again, going to our local management plan with 3 property owners, our plan was until inscription, continue as is and lessees as well. Now that we have been inscribed, our plan requires that within 6 months after inscription, we review and implement any changes necessary in our local management plan. So the topics that need to be covered are the integration with the international plan, coordination, conservation, communication, education, research, and particularly things like website, interpretation, which Charlene has commented on, resources and sustainability, climate action and flooding, the role of World Heritage in the community and our regional involvement. So those are all specific subjects in our local and international management plan. We are now in the process of addressing, and will therefore be amending the plan as a result of those.
Sure. Well, this may be for Stephanie. I know that you've had these terrific events last week, and maybe others that you didn't mention, but one questioner asks, how will you celebrate this to the general public? What's the marketing, what's the advertising, what's the celebratory acknowledgement to reach beyond the immediate community? And I might suggest that you probably know this, but the travel and tourism industry has what they call an annual powwow. The Park Service always has a significant booth there, and in particular highlights the World Heritage sites, because the powwow is one of its primary functions is to attract international visitors to the U.S. And so as you make future plans, you might well want to participate in the powwow, perhaps on your own booth or with the Park Service in theirs.
Yeah, that sounds terrific. We definitely would want to do that. And as I mentioned, Mayor Reynolds is it's really important to him to bring the community out for this celebration. It was mentioned last week, we had quite a few events, but we weren't able to include as many people as we would like to. And he really wants the community to be able to kind of lean in on this celebration and what they might want it to look like. So we're hoping in May to have our community celebration and to get all of our community partners involved, but also to open it up to the National Park Service again and our tourism agency in Pennsylvania, and then to bring those groups back in to help us celebrate and find ways to promote that on a more wider basis.
You're invited, Destry, and the ICOMOS USA team. You will be invited to that celebration.
Okay, terrific. I've enjoyed my previous visit there and would certainly enjoy coming back again. With that, we've passed by a couple of minutes, past our hour program. You've been terrific in your presentations. You've been generous with your time. We appreciate this very much. Welcome to the family of World Heritage Sites in the U.S. And we'll be in touch, I'm sure, many times in the coming months and years. So Hank and Charlene and Stephanie, thank you very much for a terrific presentation.
Thank you, Destry.